My boss fired me for being pregnant. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This last year during COVID has been a tough year for my family. My husband went from 6 figures supporting our family on his salary alone while we pocketed my entire salary to losing his job for 8 months. I work in political campaigning, which means I work on short-term contracts as an independent contractor. In other words, if we lose an election, I move on to the next race. I made a pretty good name for myself working on the lower levels of a campaign and moving up quickly. In my state this year, there were statewide elections, and I caught a lucky break and ended up the campaign manager on a statewide race. I am the youngest CM, 24-year-old female, to run a statewide race in about the last 20 years. When the primary came up, we lost the election by 200 votes. While we lost the campaign, coming so close to winning and my age made me kind of a superstar in my field. After we lost, I had offers from all over the state for jobs. The problem is I had just bought a house and wasn't looking to relocate, like you often have to do in politics. Or the positions weren't high enough coming off being the top dog, as the higher positions were already filled. I got an offer to join a local campaign, so no relocation, but the salary was lower than what I was used to. I would, however, be the CM again. However, I learned quickly my boss had a holier-than-thou personality. She made several comments about how real women breastfeed and have natural births. I would later be able to do neither, and it really screwed with my emotional well-being. I don't have time to list all the red flags, but I was literally just waiting until my husband got a job to exit. The campaign hadn't been built out at all. There was no one other than the candidate. I ended up building out our entire team: consultant, fundraiser, staff, everything. Luckily, I have made a lot of powerful connections in my time. I signed my contract and sent it in with the salary we had agreed on, with the stipulation that if we raised enough money, 3 months down the line, my salary would be raised, but could not be lowered at any point. Just a few weeks prior, I had also found out that I was pregnant, and my due date was the week of the election. And just a week after joining the campaign, I was also in a serious car accident. Luckily, my pregnancy was safe, but I herniated a disc in the car accident, and due to my pregnancy, there were very few things that could be done as far as helping my back or pain management. If I did my job right, that shouldn't be an issue, because my job can essentially be handled from home and staff could do the rest. I had the team working in Lockstep, and I was proud of the work I was doing, even though only about 10% of my views aligned with the campaign. Then we hit a snag. The candidate's husband got deployed to a rather dangerous place for a month, and she completely checked out. She stopped fundraising, which means that everything comes to a halt in campaigning. She stopped putting in the legwork to win, and we also lost our only lower staff member during this time. We knew she was worried about her husband, so no one on the team tried to push back very hard. Eventually, the husband came back, and it was go time. There wasn't a minute to waste, and I was back to getting our operation working full speed. One day, she calls me up to tell me how 20 years ago, her first job as a private school teacher was making as much money as I was now. I also live in an expensive DC suburb, not the backwoods where she grew up. I have multiple college degrees, and this job offers no benefits, unlike teaching. Not comparable at all. This is when I realized there might be a problem. A couple weeks later, I told her I would need to take a step back from doing the other staff member's job, mostly door knocking, because of my injured back, but that we would hire someone else. Unfortunately, due to the lack of fundraising, it made it hard to pay anyone else, and those duties fell on her. CMs do not typically door knock. We had a team meeting with the entire team, and I started pressuring the candidate about all the things she wasn't doing, and there was a legitimate meltdown. She started yelling at me about how I wasn't doing my job, and how my pregnancy wasn't her problem, and how I was the reason everything was failing, and then hung up on the entire team. After this, I decided to take a step back from doing all the duties that are typically handled by lower-level staff, and just focused on doing my job duties which weren't being appreciated. I pretty much went radio silent, and she kept nitpicking at everything. Everyone on the campaign started started to grow uneasy, but I told them to just hold out. Well, sure enough, she calls me up and says, "Since you are pregnant and can no longer door knock, you can either work for state minimum wage or you can find a new job." Mind you, she knew my husband had been out of work for 8 months and thought I had no options at this point. But what she didn't know is that my husband had gotten a job offer that exact day. So I stopped her right there and thanked her for the opportunity and told her I'd be working my contractually obligated 30-day notice at my current salary and then leaving the campaign. She then began to scream at me about how she wasn't paying me a dime more and started listing off the issues she had with the way I was doing my job. I stopped her, thanked her once again, and told her that all of my unfinished tasks would be completed when I received payment for the last month I worked. Yes, she was a month behind on paying me, as well as the payment for the 30-day notice that she was legally required to pay me whether I continued working or not. I waited a few hours and she never finalized my termination in writing, so I sent her a termination letter thanking her for the opportunity and once again repeating everything we had discussed on the phone. She sent me a nasty email again reiterating that I wouldn't be paid for the previous month or 30 days, and listed about 10 things that I had done to be terminated, including that I didn't wear makeup to work every day. I decided to send this email to the rest of the team, and sure enough, everyone quit, except for the consultant. In 5 minutes, she lost everyone she had. Then a friend of mine offered me my dream job working for him, so all in all, it worked out in my favor within 5 minutes of being fired. Well, here's where things get tricky. I realized that my contract that obligates her to pay me for the 30 days notice isn't signed, and I'm screwed. Well, sure enough, in her fit of rage, she starts emailing everyone talking badly about me. The only problem is I still have access to the campaign email, and I'm seeing every email she's sending. Emails saying that she wants to keep me on staff, but that I need to take less money, and that I shouldn't have been dishonest about my pregnancy. So clearly I wasn't doing my job that badly. She just wanted to pay a pregnant woman less. She also asks the consultant for a list of things that I did wrong on the campaign so that she'll have cause not to pay me my contract. I noticed that the consultant never replies to this email. He tells her that if she wants to fight it, to send him a copy of the contract and he'll have a lawyer take a look at it. Well, sure enough, she sends him a signed copy of the contract. And once again, my contract is valid and now she has to pay me my severance. She's given me every piece of ammunition I need to get paid at this point, as well as a wage discrimination suit for referencing my pregnancy as a reason for termination. I hire a lawyer. She continues to pester me about turning over all my work. The thing is, since I'm an independent contractor, I only owe her a final product if I get paid. I reiterate that she isn't getting anything until I've been paid, and she can take it up with my lawyer. She begins slandering me to everyone I know, and continuing to send emails about me that I'm just collecting. She then starts calling every friend she has to bully me into giving her what she wants. My response to all of them is, talk to my lawyer. In one final ditch effort, she has the consultant call me begging me to turn over the stuff. The problem is that the consultant and I are personal friends, and he's really unhappy working for her, but has contractual obligations. I tell him to tell her the same thing, talk to my lawyer. 5 minutes later, I get a call back from him saying that she's fired him because he refused to throw me under the bus and make up excuses for my termination, when he believes I was wrongfully terminated. She fires him too, and now he's out of his obligations. He also tells me that the lawyer she sent the contract over to said to pay me. In a matter of 2 weeks, she's once again at square one with no one on her side. She's out of money and struggling. She finally emails me at 11 p.m. that she's willing to pay me. It's nighttime and I don't work for her anymore, so I decide I don't need to respond at that moment. Well, she starts calling me incessantly and texting me, all of which I'm ignoring. By the time I wake up in the morning, I have 20 texts and 5 missed calls. I tell her that I'll need to talk to my lawyer at this point and I'll get back to her after he responds. Well, she goes nuclear. 20 minutes later, I get a call from the police. She's claiming that I've been embezzling campaign funds and stealing her data. I have to get my lawyer on the phone and explain the whole situation and why this is a BS claim. I offer the bank account information for the funds she claimed I stole and prove that they were sitting right there in her account. She just doesn't know how to access them because I'm usually the one who does that. The police officer thinks she's nuts at this point because she is, but then informs her that it's considered larceny to withhold my pay and asks if I would like to press charges. I say if she refused to pay, then yes. Within 2 days, I received a check in the mail with my payment, and I turned everything over. The funny thing is that my 30-day notice pay was actually more money than if I had finished out the contract with the reduced pay she wanted to pay me. I got an extra $700 and didn't have to work for her for the remainder of the time. She ended up losing her election in a swing district by 15 points. This woman must be one of the most self-destructive people I've ever heard of. Things seem to have started out generally okay, even if they did have technically different views. Our original poster was willing to come in and be professional and do their job. Then the whole issue with the candidate's husband getting deployed comes into play, which I feel is a lot more understandable. I'm sure it's a very stressful situation knowing that your significant other's in a very dangerous place. Especially when they're coming back in a month, you kinda just don't want to do anything until they get back. If he was being deployed for a longer amount of time, at that point you need to kind of accept it and still do something. You can't sit around for a year or more waiting for them to come back. A month is just long enough that she can skirt all of her responsibilities and focus on dealing with her emotional state, and not really have any consequences to it. I mean, there were consequences obviously, but nothing that completely derailed the situation. After this is where she really kind of starts to go off the rails though. She doesn't seem to be able to accept blame or admit when she's not doing something up to par. Instead, she's just gonna point fingers and scream, which obviously isn't a situation that any of her employees want to be in. No one wants to take that crap. But at the end of the day, you're part of a team, and it is temporary, so you try and just push through to the end. But once you start screaming at the pregnant lady and threatening to cut her pay, knowing that her husband is not currently working, that's when you're gonna start to get a lot of pushback. Because of those actions and our original poster sharing them to the entire team, she lost all of her employees, a lawsuit, and her campaign. This woman really dug her own grave. Entitled Mom tries to sue our school for exposing students to inappropriate imagery, aka health class. In year 6, I was 11 at the time, we did health class. This was a full-on health class, with highly detailed cartoons of the private parts. So consent forms were sent home to every parent via their kid to sign and give back to the school. Everyone who hadn't returned their forms would spend the lessons in the library, which is where this one kid, who we'll call him immature kid, spent many lessons. In a few lessons we were learning about splooge, just what it was, not how to do it, and we were viewing a gif of a cartoon splooging dong. Being boys, we were immature little jerks and giggled a lot. Then we hear a scream from outside our class window. Immature kid is standing there looking like the subject of Edward Munch's The Scream. He then proceeds to run out of our field of view to the office, according to people doing sports outside. We didn't see immature kid for the rest of the day. The next day, word of mouth is that immature kid's mom walked into our principal's office and threatened to sue him for showing little children these things. At lunch, I go to the principal's office and ask what happened. Principal said the consent forms were sent home with every kid and that as everyone participating in the program had consent to view the images, and that since immature kid had not brought back the consent form, he could not participate. Principal then asks how immature kid knew what was happening in the lessons when he should have been in the library. Entitled Mom defended immature kid, saying he was curious, as all boys are at this age, and then changed the subject to threatening to sue the school for doing health class. Principal told her that it was legal to look it up and that you'll find many schools included as part of their course. I don't think it's officially in the Australian curriculum though. Entitled Mother threatened to sue, and Principal said that it would fall on deaf ears, and Entitled Mom walked out. Immature kid was later transferred to a different school, and that's the last I heard of him. Okay, so for this one, we don't exactly know when this took place. We didn't get a specific year or anything like that. So that is one factor to consider, that if this is an older story, that might make a little bit more sense. Those types of health classes weren't always a thing, especially in certain parts of the world. But from what I gather from the story, we're in some kind of transitional stage here maybe. Either way, the kid wasn't supposed to be there. She didn't sign the consent forms and he wasn't supposed to be in that class. It's not the school's fault that he's wandering around the halls and happened to peek in at the wrong time. It was not images that they showed to her son. The only children who saw it were the ones whose parents signed the consent form. The school did everything right. I don't know what grounds entitled mother thinks that she has here. At the end of the day, this is a part of how the world works. If he didn't end up seeing it there, he would have ended up seeing something eventually, be it in TV or movies or whatever. You can't keep him innocent forever. I tried to be honest with Amazon, but they weren't having any of it. This was a year or two ago when Amazon Fresh were opening up new stores in London. For anyone not familiar with them, you just walk in, take what you want, and walk out. Your Amazon account gets billed as they use cameras and sensors. So I used the one in White City after it had just opened. I went in just for the novelty factor and got a few things. I found a couple pricing errors in my favor. A couple really big pricing errors. I did the decent thing and told Amazon, expecting a thank you, but got a call from an irate handler insisting I got and was charged the correct amount, and that I wasn't overcharged and wasn't due anything back. I repeatedly tried in vain to say, no, you've undercharged me, but she was having none of it, so I gave up. Naturally, after the call, I changed my tube commute for a 5-minute longer route, and I went in each day and bought only those items that were priced wrong. Suffice to say, I have enough toiletries for a few years. Also, I'm now sickened by a pricey cheesecake brand and have gone off halloumi cheese. For a bit more clarity on the prices, the cheesecakes and halloumi cheese were pennies on the pound. I paid pennies on the pound. I paid about 2% of the actual price. So about 8 pence per 5 pounds for a small, fancy artisan cheesecake, and about 9 pence for the block of halloumi. The toiletries I paid about 6 or 7% of the actual price, so about 50 to 60 pence per item instead of 9 to 11 pounds. Plus, it's toiletries I'd have been buying anyway. Only thing now is I had to get a few big boxes in the garage to store them. Yeah, I guess they didn't read your complaint right. I'm willing to bet that they probably have a lot of people trying to scam them pulling maneuvers like this. As a result, this is their default answer. They're not actually reading the details of the email. They see it's something along the same lines of what they've been reading for the last couple hours and give the same response. If I were in their situation, I would also probably be a little bit ticked off with all these people trying to get free money. But our original poster was trying to be a good Samaritan and let them know that they were getting ripped off. This wasn't a one-time issue. This was an actual pricing error on the item itself. So it's not just our original poster that was getting this amazing discount. It was anyone who bought it, and it seems like there were several items that had this issue. These are just the ones that our original poster discovered. Who knows what other goodies they were giving away for 95% off. My boss didn't want to approve my vacation, so I walked out. This was recent. I used to work for a very popular beauty supply in America. Worked there for 2 years with no requests because I mostly was a student at uni. 5 months before I wanted to take a vacation, I tell her, hey, so my parents got me a present to go to Cancun in December and I'll need these days off.
Don't worry about it. When time comes, I'll leave you off the schedule. Seems exciting.
I thought, great. A month before the vacation, I remind her, and she looked at me and told me, I don't know what you're talking about. I lost it silently in my head and walked away to talk to my other bosses. And she too said,
I know what you requested, but it's not up to me to decide. It's on her.
2 weeks pass and I lay out my resignation and she denies it. Turns out she was pregnant and was trying to take time off on the days that I was planning to leave. We were short-staffed, but this was said 5 months before. She put me on a 40-hour work week when I was supposed to be gone, and I left Tuesday morning when I confronted her and she just brushed me off like a servant. Come lunch, I'm bombarded with calls from the district manager and other employees to come to my shift. No thanks, but good luck. It really sucks when you're trying to be proactive and give them all that notice so that there won't be any issues, and they try and pull something like this. You're going far beyond their policy. I'm sure they only need maybe a month or two notice for something like this, but you went ahead and gave them 5 months. There should be no issues. Also, you've been there 2 years and never taken time off. It sounds to me like you deserve a vacation. I feel like maybe the manager did initially have the intention to give you the time off and everything was going to be fine. But once she got pregnant, got a little selfish with the time and wanted it for herself. Which is understandable, but also not cool. You have these vacation plans made. You probably have tickets booked, you probably have hotels booked, you're all ready to go. You have a lot of money put into this. If she really wants to take that time off while you're taking that time off, then that's up to her to make sure that there's coverage. Maybe you hire someone new to come in since you're gonna need some extra help since you're pregnant. Or maybe you have someone come in from another location to cover you for that 1 week. There are plenty of other options besides ripping your employee's vacation away from them. That's definitely not a way to win your employee's favor. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.